Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. On Humans, written by Guncaster. They are not chosen by the void. The void is chosen by them. They cannot harness its power because of some underlying truth, some law. They control it because they believe they can. They are the only species capable of self-delusion that even forces beyond existence itself are fooled. A species of liars, charlatans, degenerates and hedonists, created by an even more primitive predecessor, as an idealized version of themselves, an affront to the natural order by definition. They alone can believe something while knowing that it is illogical and true. They have given aspects of unknowable emptiness names, categorized them, forced them into grid of scientific laws and principles. As long as their scientific procedures are fulfilled, the void behaves according to that science. But they are not scientific species. They are incapable of grasping the basic laws of reality without breaking them down into simpler concepts that their primitive minds can process. Their science is as much empirical logic as it is ritualistic mysticism. On more occasions than I am willing to admit, I have witnessed their scientists will a piece of what they call void tech into function through guesswork and prayers. Know this, my kin, they are creatures of magic that fancy themselves creatures of science. If you ever face one of their kin who is aware of this fact, who has fully embraced their contradictory, dualistic nature, pray. End of story. Story number 2. Ode to a Stick, written by Admiral Starnight. Settle down, everyone. I know you all just got in from your morning meals, but please, I have a job to do. And remember, you all signed up for this class. The professor clacked his head scales together loudly, and all the younger Zarn settled down. Almost close to being fully mature, the Zarn in the class were proud creatures, jostling for the best seats, measuring head scales and comparing the patterns on their tails. Dominance always needed to be settled at that age, so the professor just let them do as they must. So it took him a minute for them to all properly work out where they belonged and turn full attention to the older Zarn that had led this class. Now, in the last class, we had moved on from the mid-history to recent, including beginning the chapter of our race's recent interstellar wars. You were all assigned to read the requested text up to Section 10. The most recent war. The professor paused. Thoughts? Ideas? I cannot believe that we had won 20 wars before losing the most recent. One of the more boisterous males called. That is a disgrace to our race's name. Murmurs of agreement came from most of his classmates, and even the professor nodded in a non-committal way. Well then, good news, I have a special guest to speak with us. The professor walked over to the door, opening it to let in an older Zarn. He hobbled onto his 3 legs, obviously crippled, as he used a long wooden staff that was carved from a dark wood to help support his walk. His head scales were large, but cracked from damage done to them a long time ago. Ragged edges worn soft by regular fighting and wear. He had a nasty scar across one of his eyes, the pupil completely milky. This is Zarn T of Demora, former general of the Honor Guards, a veteran of the war with the humans. The class collectively made small smacking sounds with their tails on the ground. Respect and honor given not just an elder, but a veteran of one of the most famous units to ever serve the Zarn nation. Only the most respectable Zarn gained the title of their race name. So, you younglings want to know how we lost the war? His voice was rougher, touched with age and many years spent yelling over gunfire and battle. T shook his head, letting his head scales fall as flat. I want to hear why you think we lost. What has society taught you? They had huge battleships and front armor like head scales. Armor so tough that you could bomb it from orbit without a scratch. A breach too fast. Human viruses were weaponized against us. T waited to see if there were any more guesses before he lashed his tail, leaning a bit harder on his staff. Good guesses, but all wrong. The humans won because... He paused to let them get drawn in, even the most studious of note-takers looking up from the words. Of a stick. What? The male from before exclaimed. Yes, a stick. T moved to lean against the seat of the professor, but did not sit down. The seat was still ill-suited for his crippled leg. You see, you young Zon all look at images of the humans and assume that because they lack scales, tails, and the same number of limbs, they have to be lesser than us. After all, we have defeated the mighty Kekna with their 1,000-limb insects of war, the sneaky Tordred with their color-blending furs, and the abominations of the dark worlds with their endless rage. The humans with their soft flesh and scaleless heads, they should have been a breeze. T tapped his tail on the floor, looking around at the Zon, all of them listening, some with interest, others with incredulity. You see, the thing is, a stick is a broad label. More than just what you would accidentally step on in the park as you stalk your friends in the hopes of a winning pounce. It is many things. A piece of wood, sharpened with malice, its length of metal used to pry open crates. It's a shard of a ship hull fallen from orbit that can be grasped with all hands. A gun with no more ammo. He sighed, remembering past battles and hard-learned lessons. It is a lot of things, but in the hands of a human, it is something more powerful. He leaned himself upright, beginning to pace, using the staff to punctuate his words rather than tail slap or scale crack. It is a noise purposely made to draw attention away from critical areas. It is cover over a deep hole, broken as heavy feet fall upon it and trapping the naive soldiers to be killed at the enemy's leisure. It is a wedge in the crack of your armor, a tool that is always there for those brave enough to use it. T hissed, glaring around the room as though looking into the past, seeing his men fall before him to these traps laid by humans. That sounds like a load of soft scales. The male barked, head scales raising in challenge. A stick is a tool for weaklings. We have better guns, better armor, better ships. I refuse to believe that we lost because of a stick. The professor began to speak, but stopped as T raised his own head scales, glaring at the young male challenging his dominance. Oh, well then, small scales, why don't you come here and face me? At this insult, the male climbed out of his seat and came to face the veteran. He was well built for his age, and one day might be a fine lead Zon. His muscles were filling out well, his head scales looking strong with satisfying clack that told of a healthy growth. It reminded T of his own youth as the young male faced him with an expression of determination on his face. T shuffled a bit to reposition himself, glaring at the young Zon. Well, young one, are you going to charge, or maybe your mother should have eaten your yolks for breakfast rather than incubate you? The barb landed, and the young male charged. Even crippled T moved startlingly fast, using his staff to drive into his stomach, forcing the air out of the youngest youngs. While the male was still wheezing, the staff whipped down, catching behind one knee and sending the Zon flat to the floor at his back. When the young male finally realized he was down, he was staring up at T above him, the bottom of his staff hovering dangerously above one of his eyes. His cracked head scales fully up, and his remaining eye fixed on the haughty young male that had challenged him. You see, small scales, T hissed dangerously. Is that when you run the human out of ammo, overheat the energy shells, kill the tanks, blow up the shuttles, drive off the warships, remove the armor, destroy the weapons? You do all that, and you have a human before you on its knees, its clothing torn, its bright red blood mixing with the dirt and sweat of a long battle, seeping from wounds that hadn't yet had time to heal. T paused, leaning over as he placed his staff down next to the young male's head, so that he wouldn't topple over. You have them at your mercy, and you expect them to give up, to do as others might, fall with their last bullet, or ask for death. T gave a snort, bitter laugh. But that is when the humans always stagger to their feet, wipe the blood and dirt from their eyes, and stand before you, trembling like a freshly hatched newborn, their eyes blazing with defiance before they charge at you. He straightened and stepped back to allow the younger male to stand before hitting him hard on one of his arms. Hard enough to sting and dent scales there, but not enough to break one. And trust me, small scales, T growled, they always have a stick, and they always know how to use it. That is why we lost. End of story. Just a quick shout out to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Cat Crab Lobster, Data Magnet, Dark Machine, Bezic, Try Again 95, Pudic Yol, Astrea the Dreamer, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Athelia, Meridian 117, and Jordan Bucksmorm. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.